Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome inside the latest edition of Across the Cavs. Excited to be here today with two-year Cavalier. He was the first Cav to ever make 10 threes in a single game, played parts of 14 seasons in the NBA. He needs no introduction. We're giving him one anyway. A fantastic shooter, CJ Miles. Pleasure to have you on. Looking forward to talking about your career and your upbringing to the NBA as one of the last high schoolers to go straight from senior year to the pros.
Yeah, man, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me. Thanks for reaching out.
So he'll be back in just a moment. CJ Miles across the Cavs, get to know his entire basketball career. All right, so we're here. CJ, you were the number 12 prospect out of high school in 2005, graduating from Skyline, a very incredible class that featured a number of talented players that some went to the league, some didn't. Ranked one spot behind you was Greg Paulus, who ended up playing quarterback as a grad student, never made it to the NBA, a Duke graduate, and then Syracuse. But we're going to go a little back, maybe before high school, CJ. When did you know first that you wanted to be an NBA player?
The crazy thing is, if this makes sense, I knew I wanted to play basketball. But I didn't really think about the NBA when I was young, right? I just knew I wanted to play basketball. I was a very in the moment kid when it came to that. It's like, are we hooping today? Cool. Like, it was like that, right? And then maybe, close to middle school time, ninth grade, my dad asked me, what do you want to do with this? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? And my biggest thing was I wanted to play with the best players in the world. I wanted to see where I matched up with that. I wanted to, to me, that sounded like heaven, getting to play against the best basketball players in the world and playing basketball every day. And that's just really been how it's been for me since.
And as mentioned before, you did go straight from Skyline to being the 34th overall pick by the Utah Jazz, where you spent your first 7 seasons. Was there a thought of going to school at times? Obviously, 2005, one of those last years when you could make the jump directly. You and Andrew Bynum both going straight to the NBA in 2005. Or was it just, I think I'm ready. Let's test the waters and see where this goes?
I had every intention of going to University of Texas until probably 2 weeks before the draft, 2 weeks before you had to pull your name out. I got guaranteed from teams, a couple of teams said, if I was there, that I was getting drafted. And my whole thing was, getting my foot in that door. As long as I had keys to the gym, I was never worried about if I was going to be able to make it or not. That's the kind of confidence I had in basketball. That's the kind of confidence I had in my love for the game. So I just knew as long as I was allowed a fair shot at it to work, I would be fine. And that was 2 years or 1 year under the NBA's belt, learning up there. And I thought that was the best case for me. I wanted it that bad.
And it's funny, right? Is your first year in Cleveland, you ended up playing with Boobie Gibson in his final season. Now, you would have been his Texas teammate. You guys ever talk about that when you got to Cleveland? Now, yeah, man, I almost went to Texas. It was almost you, me, and LaMarcus back then.
We had a couple brief conversations about it because, there was a little – I don't know the temperament now, but I was not liked in Austin for a long time, just because of that team that was already there and the potential of adding myself, who was going in with AJ Abrams winning that year, and then say I stay my second year and Kevin Durant's a freshman when I'm a sophomore. There's a whole 3-year block where a lot of what ifs pop up and people don't like me for that. I played the D League, it's the G League now, but the D League then. And they booed me and threw stuff at me when I played a game in Austin. Yeah, not nothing crazy, but they let it be known, hey, you're not. Up until probably my 6th, 7th, 8th year, we play in San Antonio, there'd be somebody that would say something to me. Still, a decade later.
And then who are some of your favorite hoopers to watch growing up that you kind of shaped your game after?
Everything. Anything and everything that had to do with basketball. Obviously, I say Michael Jordan, but everybody loves Michael Jordan, right? I was a huge Penny Hardaway fan. I loved Ray Allen. Allen Houston. The guys I really feel that I really took stuff from. When I was younger, I loved Antoine Walker when I was younger. And then as I got older, I started to look at the game like as a whole and just started to like pick apart the whole thing. But when I was younger, those are, some big guys. Larry Johnson, who was also, went to my high school, but also loved to watch him play. Um, yeah, there was basketball, man. Like it was really that. Like
what about on the left-handed side? Obviously, you're one of the greatest left-handed shooters
lefties.
that ever graced the court. I know Stacey Augmon wasn't as much of an outside shooter. Did you watch him? Are there any other lefties
Tony
also?
Kukoc.
Tony Kukoc, yeah.
Tony Kukoc, Michael Redd. Those are I love Tayshaun Prince. The crazy thing is like all the guys a lot of the guys I'm naming I got to play against because I made the jump. But like those are guys like 2 years before that I was like watching and trying to. That's like my favorite thing about my career is that I got to get to the guys that I thought were like the idols, the legends for me. Like I got to get to them. I got to get to Kobe. I got to get to T-Mac. I got to Shaq. All the guys. I got Grant Hill. like a lot of guys that I really looked up to. Ray Allen, obviously, played a long career. Like I got to go against those guys, and that was like really, really big for me.
So with that, right? 2 years earlier, you're on your couch at home. You're a very good high school player that's just an NBA fan. What was your welcome to the league moment as an 18-year-old playing for the Utah Jazz?
Welcome to the moment as an 18-year-old. So there's not a lot of games that in my rookie year that I play like that allow that. I remember there was a couple teams though, like where I understood the physicality was going to be a lot different. So there was Detroit at that time and Indiana at that time. So this Indiana team is the Ron Artest, Steven Jacksons, like those Al Harringtons, those guys, right? Like that's a different mentality from high school. And then Detroit was Detroit. The Detroit that won the championship was Chauncey, Tayshaun, Rip, Rashid, and Ben, right? And I remember just getting in those games and feeling that difference, even in preseason. My first preseason game, my first year, Jerry Sloan intentionally didn't play me against the Pacers because he didn't think I would be able to handle it. I found this out later. But he was like, he didn't want to throw me into that early because I had my first preseason game and I played against the Toronto Raptors and I had a really good game. I hit a 3 to send the game into overtime, like a big game, like for my first one after not even knowing if I was going to get a chance to play that year because of the age thing and how he was about it. And there were so many vets, but I was trying to make a case, have that game. And the next game is the Indiana Pacers and I do not touch the floor. And I could not figure that out for the life of me for so long. And then someone finally told me, and I was like, I wish y'all had told me that back then so I could like help myself together a little better.
Yeah, and we're looking at the numbers. Your 4th season, and my personal early years of being an NBA fan, or your early years in Utah. My early NBA memories go back to playing NBA Live 06. You were rocking 34, playing with D. Will and Memo, C. Booth. Think you had the late stages of Gordon Giracek. You may have had Kyle Korver by those years. I think he came a little later.
Gordon gets traded for Kyle while I'm there.
Yes.
So I got a year of Gordon, and then Kyle comes in. My second or third year, Kyle comes in.
Did you work on a lot of shooting with him? Him being somebody that somehow the best year of his career was his 2nd season and made threes, despite coming into the league before the 3-point shot really boomed.
Yeah. So with him, I just watched him. And we shot, you do shooting games after practice. There was a couple of days of that, like shooting, but I never really had talks per se about it, like him just I just watched him. I just watched what he did. I took stuff from his warm-up from pregame. I took stuff that I saw him do. I just watched him and just kind of at that time, I wouldn't say I was a 3-point shooter. Like you said, the game hadn't boomed that way. And I was still trying to define myself. So I still had a lot of my other things that I had in my game that was still trying to prove that I could do them. I was still playing a little point guard. I was still handling more. I was still trying to be that. I didn't have a role yet. It wasn't like that yet. And all that stuff that I took from him when I got to Cleveland, I just threw all that stuff in my bag. I was like, all right, I'm going to take all of that. Remember having a talk with Mike Brown. He felt like I should shoot more threes, and we ran from there.
And so you spend 7 years in Utah, and then becomes official in August of 2012 that you were going to Cleveland. What kind of drew you after your first 7 years are spent in Utah to kind of spend those years toward your peak / prime in your late 20s as a Cavalier?
Byron Scott, we had real good talks in that situation, and then going to a space, that was building and a lot of youth and a lot of trying to figure themselves out. I felt like it would give me a really good chance to prove that I could play, to prove that I could, open my game was more than what it was at the time. Just the end of my time in Utah just wasn't the best time basketball for me. There was a lot that went on. Jerry Sloan retired, Coach Gorman comes, and then things get shook up. Guys are getting traded. Like me and Paul Millsap are the only ones left at this time from the teams that were really good. So like everything just gets kind of, and they're clearly going in a new direction because that's me and Paul's last year. And we have those talks, and I just wanted to go somewhere. And then obviously Kyrie's there, so you get that backcourt, getting to play the 2 guard with him and being able to create space and have opportunities to do that. But the biggest thing was with Byron and where they were headed. I also did not know LeBron was leaving. So.
No, it's fair. It was certainly some interesting years over there. And obviously, we're going to get to the 13-14 season in its own right, because I'm sure there's a lot to unpack there between the trades and then the infamous practices, the guys that came in. But your first year, of course, that 12-13 season, you became the first Cav to make 10 threes in a game. And the only guys to join you on that list have been J.R. Smith, Donovan Mitchell, and Darius Garland since then. So it's not something to be taken lightly. The guy could just come and make 10 threes, especially when 12 was the record for years from Kobe until Zach LaVine and Klay Thompson finally said, all right, we got to pass this. Can't have Donyell Marshall and Kobe holding it down forever. So on that day, you made 10 threes, and I threw some checks. I believe you had 3 or 4 games of at least 8, 9 threes with the Cavs. What did it mean to you to kind of have that record in place for a franchise that has a really storied history and has even climbed again in recent years, and the record held, for a long time?
I mean, I didn't realize it was happening when it happened. Obviously, like I didn't know, but it was like afterwards, having your name being put in places like that, even when it gets broken, like you still attached to it, because I remember like who someone broke it, like Kyrie broke it after that. And that was a fun exchange me and him had with that. But I think just being able to put a stamp on the game, and show your work in a way in that type of way. Because like it's a lot of great players and there's a lot of great athletes and a lot of guys who don't get opportunities to do that. Like who just don't. Like they're in the league and they just don't get the chance, the time. And that was what was special about it to me.
Yeah, it was Kyrie. Kyrie had that 56 out of the team's 99 points.
Yeah.
I remember that game way too well. You did it against the Sixers. Then Darius also hit 10. It was not JR, not Donovan. He had 10 against Minnesota the night he scored 50, which is the only loss, on the 3. And so we do go to your second season, and this was that 13-14 year. For those that don't remember, it was Dion's second season, Kyrie's third season.
Mm-hmm.
Jarrett Jack comes in. You still have Tyler Zeller. You have a healthy Varejao coming into the year. Andrew Bynum was the big offseason signing after the problems in Philadelphia with his knee and his image and bowling. And, of course, there were some good moments early in the season. It was Mike Brown's return year, as you mentioned, your conversations with Mike Brown. And some acquisitions are made. There's the news of the Bynum practice, and Luol Deng comes in. So you had Anthony Bennett, number 1 pick, and there was all that stuff about him. So obviously on the outside, CJ, there was a lot happening. But what was it kind of like within the team with just so many storylines and all the attention on what was supposed to be a revamped squad?
So it's one of those things where it very much could have went the way we thought it was going to go. Like, right. Like when being there and seeing it and the potential we had, the talent we had, obviously. So starting with Andrew just, it was a health thing. Like his body, his knees, they were just bad. It wasn't anything. And I think that just got frustrating. Like Like I think, and guys go through things. Like you go, especially I think about coming from where he came from, like the height of his career, where he was headed to that situation where like, you know, playing a game means you might not be able to play in the next two. I think that's hard on anybody. You doing the thing you love. That's the way I saw it. And then the rest of that team, we just had a lot of guys that could play, and a lot of things we just didn't put it together. We had a lot of youth also, and then Anthony he went through rookie problems as a number one pick. Like it was just a situation because he had a lot of things wrapped around it where people felt like he shouldn't have been the number one pick or this, that, and I was like, I never understood how you could blame him for that. Like him for being picked. I never understood why he was treated that way. And I think he held it a certain way. And that's because it wasn't talent. If you just saw him the way we saw him, you would know that it wasn't talent. I remember when he got there, the first sets of pickup games we played, and everybody was like, you would have never imagined the season would have went the way it went if you just saw him before it started. There was no way you would have ever thought that. There was nothing about him that said that. And then things happened. Like I said, like it was just a tough time. And then you get those two things weighing on you and you're trying to like, these are two pieces that are going to be big pieces. And you got other guys really trying to figure out the way to balance it. And myself and Jared Jack, you know, being veteran guys at that time. And I knew Jared. So like that made that easier. We tried, you know, helping out and leading the ways that we can. And Kyrie is Kyrie. He's doing what he's doing. He's helping. He's you know, but it's only him. It's you know what I mean? Like there's things that have to change, and he's going through his change of understanding that it's not just him anymore as far as like having to do it this way. But there's a chance with this team and things that are going on. He's had 2 years of him just kind of going at it 1-on-5. So there's a lot of things that come to balance, and you try to balance, but it just, you know, it's the nature of the NBA.
You know, within that season, obviously the highs and lows. I mentioned Anthony Bennett. You know, we talk about Kyrie Surge, you and Jared Jack. There was that time in the middle of the season where you and the Knicks were kind of both pushing to sneak into that 8 seed where you guys put together a 6-game winning streak that I remember very well. That also included a win over the Thunder, who had their whole core at the time. They had KD, they had Russ, and you guys went and handled business. So, of course, you know, the vibes do change over the course of a season, but what can you remember about the time during that 6-game winning streak, which probably for the Cavs, without LeBron, you probably have to go back to that late 90s, early 2000s, because you guys were the best team since he had left, without question.
Mm-hmm. We thought we had a chance. We really thought that was the goal. The goal was playoffs from the beginning. Like I said, the things that happened throughout the season that put us in a position to have to try to do it that way, it is what it is. But like we felt we were a playoff team. It just we didn't get there, and we felt like if we could get there, one for where we were headed, it would be tremendous for those young guys, that experience and getting there. Because I remember having a talk, and we knew the next step for Kyrie's evolution at that time was to taste the playoffs. Like thinking about him as a veteran and as a team and as a unit, to get the most out of him to where he needs now, he needs to feel that. He needs to taste that, because that changes everything. Because now it's like, oh, that's what I need to win. Doesn't know yet. He knows what it takes to score and win Rookie of the Year. Like, you know, he knows how to make himself good at this time, but like he needed to see what else he was going to take to do that. And I think we really wanted that for him also.
And then also within that season, as if there's not even more, you have Matthew Dellavedova coming in undrafted. St. Mary's carved his way into the starting lineup.
Yeah.
You have that Detroit comeback down 21 in the fourth, one of my personal favorite games I've seen as a fan in my life. I've rewatched the Waiters game winner about 300 times. Also one of my favorite games. That was one of Delly's 3 rookie double-doubles. It was his second in a row, the only time in his season that he did that. But what are your thoughts on getting to play with him? Because 1 year after, you know, this season goes down, he's getting chance at the NBA Finals. You got everyone on national networks screaming his name. He's getting under the skin of the All-Star Hawks in the postseason. You know, he's getting into it with Taj Gibson. He's getting into it with Al Horford. And all of a sudden, this scrappy guy that a lot of American basketball fans might not have known as well is now getting national attention because they got LeBron, they got Kyrie, and they got another superstar there, Kevin.
He deserved every bit of it. Like, I mean, I liked him in college. As a basketball head, like I liked him so. But I mean, when he works, like we used to joke about it all the time. He was either working out or eating when you saw him. That was it. Like there was nothing else. I never saw him. He was either working out or eating. Like that was it. We all joked about it. He was always, and he would eat in the cold tub or so he was getting ready to go work out again. But he worked, man, and he studied the game and he found his niche and he was like, this is how I'm going to get to play. This is how I'm going to get a chance. And he gave everything all the time. I'm talking like full body cramps after games type stuff. Like he loved it, man. And he was a hard-nosed dude and great dude too, though. Great energy about him. Cheer guys on. He's a great teammate. Like I love Deli. I actually connected with him after a long time, like on Instagram, like a couple months ago. And that was cool. Like to have that exchange because it's been so long.
And he's still going. He got in the NBL final last year. He got some Olympic minutes. I think surprised a lot of local fans, but I'm sure you've seen and a lot of people have seen someone that works that hard is going to find a way on the court, even with on a roster featuring all current NBA talent. And
he's smart too. He knows the game too. Like there's nothing that experience he has from all the games he's played and the different roles he's played on different teams. He's been the guy, he's been the last guy, he's been the role player, he's been every part of a team. And the experience you gain from that and the wisdom that comes with that is unmatched.
And so, CJ, you spent parts of 16 seasons in the NBA. Obviously, we're here talking Cavs. It's a Cavs-centric podcast / conversation. So we are going to touch on your other stops. But before we leave Cleveland here, it was only 2 seasons, but what is your overall thought on your 2 years, that time in your life, and how you remember it now, looking back now, 11 seasons removed from your final campaign over there?
I loved Cleveland. I loved the city. I made some good friends in that city, but like basketball-wise, that stop is big for me in my career because I reinstilled my confidence. I had lost a lot of confidence in my game. So that place has a special place in my heart just from that standpoint alone. Like they gave me a chance to be able to like remind myself, forget everybody else, that I could play. Like when I got there, Byron Scott put me in positions that I hadn't got to play in the last couple of years in Utah to like show my athleticism, show the things I still had, and expanding out to the 3-point line. And then Mike Brown, like I said, pushed me into what literally like changes the trajectory of my career and gives me another career basically. And that place is special to me.
And with that, you go to Indiana where your very first season, you have a career year. You averaged 14 a game, a career high. 3-point percentage did drop a bit, but the volume was at a career highs. Your first time making 2+ threes per game. Shot 80% from the line. Of course, I think that was PG was still there. I think it was the last year of PG. Is that the last year of PG 24? That 14, 15?
That's the year. That was the year he broke his leg.
That was preseason, right?
Yeah, in the USA game, he broke his leg that year, and that was the year he missed, which was even crazier going into that situation because now you go from thinking you're going to be the 6th man, which was the talk we had at the table. Literally, Larry Bird said to my face that they needed me to be, shooting and 6th man, to Lance leaving and him breaking his leg and then George Hill getting hurt and like all these things happen and getting the chance to be the guy in certain situations was crazy.
And even with all that, you guys managed to have a near 500 season. It was certainly an interesting group. You were the second leading scorer behind George. You had Rodney Stuckey after he was there after a long time in Detroit. I still had David West, Roy Hibbert, C.J. Watson, Scola, Solomon Hill was coming into his own. You did get the tail end of PG, and I missed it by one game. I happened as a fan to going to school in Massachusetts. I missed it by one game. I saw your game against Boston, where Paul was one game away. He was on the court warming up, didn't know for sure if he was going to play or not. But so kind of being around them and in that first season, what was it like to kind of see him come back and then him coming right at the tail end of the season as you made the playoff push? How inspiring was it for you and the rest of the team to kind of – because the next couple of years certainly very competitive Pacer teams. How was that helped by Paul's push to return to the court within 12 months of that even happening?
I mean, that first of all, hats off to like the training staff over there. I love that training staff. They're one of the best training staffs I worked with while I was in the league. To Josh and those guys over there, they're tremendous because there's no way he should have been able to get back and be the way he was. I mean, he had a little calf injury at the end of the year, and that's just from conditioning to get ready to this basketball again. Like, but the fact that he was back on his leg and doing the things that he was doing, watching him get ready and being able to witness basically 80% of the progress, right, of the comeback, it was just inspiring. And then, like, at the same time, it gave a lot of guys a chance to gain confidence and play and be in spaces they hadn't been in the game. And we felt like with him coming back, adding him to that now would allow us to be able to like pick up some slack, to give him the time to get all of his rhythm back. And then also, allow him time to expand and not have to jump in and think he had to do everything. And that was another one of those teams that I felt like we were a playoff team. We had a really good shot. We felt like if we got into playoffs that we would be scary for somebody.
And certainly those next couple of seasons showed that. Took the Raptors to 7-16. And then there was the series with the Cavs during your final season. But a couple guys I want to touch on, and then we'll talk about the shot in 2017. So other than PG, and we are going to talk a lot about PG in the same sense, you played with Monte Ellis, who was your draft mate in 2005. Another straight to NBA guy. You had young Miles Turner. Ty Lawson had a quick spell over there. You had dunk contest champion Glenn Robinson III, of course, George Hill. What was it like to share the court, more specifically, or a two-parter? See young Miles Turner, who's become quite the impressive big man. He's carved out a whole career in Indiana, almost a decade now, for a decade. And then sharing it with scores and guys like Monte, and then a healthy PG alongside yourself.
With Miles, the first thing was like we knew he was going to be an elite rim protector from day one. Like that part of him, his timing, the shots he got to, it was just about experience with him. I always knew he had a good shooting touch. He was becoming a better shooter as he got there. So he had some battles with that because they wanted him in the paint because he was adding that. But obviously, like where the game's going, he was part of that new young wave coming in. And then the rest of those guys, Monte is Monte, right? Like Mississippi Bullet, like at this time, he's just crafty. He knows how to get to his spots. He's a professional scorer. And it was cool to be able to reconnect with somebody that you've known since you were kids, right? And getting a chance to play with each other after going the routes that we went. And then those guys, like I said, I had another career after I left Cleveland. So playing with those guys only made that better. I got more space. I got to kind of fall into an actual role that I saw was needed, and I just played it. Like I just worked at it, and I figured out. I ended up playing some stretch 4 at this time, gaining myself more minutes and things. So it was just fun to do that and to be a wingman with Paul, knowing the type of attention that he pulled in, being able to alleviate some of that late in games or to me to get late game shots was always great.
And obviously, this has been primarily positive. I do want to talk about that game 1 in Cleveland, which was your final playoff series in Indy, just because so much was made of this on what was a good shot, and not every shot is going to go in. So that 2016-17 series with the Cavs, a lot of people remember that was the Cavs' 3rd straight trip to the final. Every game was decided by single digits, game 1 by 1, game 2 by 6, and the games in Indy by 5 and by 4. Lance Stevenson had come back to Indy at midseason and brought a new energy off the bench. You had started a couple games in the series. You had Kevin Seraphin and Monte, and Thad Young was now in the fold. And I remember watching this whole series. A lot of people did. You had a look in at the end of that first game, and obviously it didn't go up. It's an open shot. It's a shot you take 10 times out of 10. But PG was also available, so everyone was talking about that. So two-parter, what do you remember about that series? And do you think it would have been different? Do you ever think about the world where that shot goes in, and then maybe you steal one in Cleveland, you get a little extra momentum, and then upset the LeBron, Kyrie Cavs in that series?
I don't think about it at all. I'll be honest with you. I don't I don't really operate in like what ifs like that. I mean, obviously we can talk about it. I can tell you like if we make it, yeah, the series got a little different feel. Like you still won in Cleveland, and confidence is higher on our side, things like that. We can say those things, yeah, but like the nature of it is I was put in the game in case Paul couldn't get the shot.
Yeah.
I'm at this year, I'm one of the best shooters in our league, which I said. Keep it plain and simple. I took a shot that I take all the time. I missed it. If I'd have just stood there and held the ball, then we'd be having another conversation, right? So like,
Yeah.
I I know everybody wants PG to take the shot. We wanted PG to take the shot. The reality of it is, I'm standing there with the ball with 3-4 seconds left, and he's been double teamed out by half court. I make the play that I'm supposed to make. I don't think if we somehow get it to him with 1 second and he shoots a step back from the hash that his shot's better than that. I don't. Like, do I think if we could get him a clean shot, would I rather his shot over mine in that situation? Yes, that was the goal. He was rolling, like he was playing, he was being PG. It just happened to happen like that.
And so beyond Indy, you had stops in Toronto, Memphis, Washington, and of course during that COVID year, got that one extra game with Boston. You and Joe Johnson and Nick Stauskas and a number of guys getting some sneaky extra minutes there. So the reason I bring that up, you played parts of 16 seasons in the NBA, which certainly a testament to the hard work, the ability, the growth, taking on the different roles. And so throughout your stops, I was talking about Cleveland, we talk about Indy, talk about Toronto. You were honored in Utah recently. And so kind of goes to show, at least to me, after 7 seasons there, your early years, it's still a good memory. Well, what was that like? And then second part of the question is, when you're watching ball now, do you still have a favorite team or players? Or are you kind of just enjoying the games as a fan, knowing that you were part of it, for so long?
As far as Utah goes, that was crazy because since like actual retirement, that's the first team I went back to see that where it was that kind of thing. Like I went to go catch a game in Indy last year, but it was just like I happened to be there seeing some family. We just slid through there. But like going back with that intention of them showing that type of love to me and doing that type of thing is just it's pretty crazy because you kind of get caught up in while you're doing it. I was talking to my wife about this a couple of days. Sometimes we talk about stuff and it's like we really did that. Like the dream actually happened, right? It still feels like a dream, even though it did actually happen sometimes. But Utah, I became a man there. Like 7 years of my life at that time of my life, 18 to 25, those are like monumental times. And I am the person I am today a lot because of that time there and those people there and that organization who gave me my chance. So like that, the same as Cleveland, that time period, those first 7 years are not that the other ones are not, but those shaped me.
And so final question for you here, CJ, as we look back on your career, look at the current NBA landscape, of course, it's being Cav centric, we'll finish it there. They're 33-5. They didn't lose to Indy last night. They're going to meet again tomorrow. And as you know, from 16 years in the league, you can never put too much emphasis on one game, no matter what the team is. Even the best teams are going to lose to the worst teams. And even the quote unquote worst team has 15 to 17 in the modern day NBA ready players at any given time. So it happens. But what are your thoughts on this year's team? And do you think the success that they've had is sustainable in the postseason?
I think so. To speak on like what you say about the teams, like, and this will go into my answer, but the teams in the league that aren't winning games and not because they're not talented, they're just not as consistent as the other teams that doing certain things. So that's why you'll see them beat the best team in the league on one night, because it's not about talent. It's about consistently doing things throughout the game that allow you to win the disciplined teams. And that's what goes into this team that you watch them play. This team is disciplined in what they do. They don't change. They make adjustments to, who they're playing, but they don't change the core of what they do for other teams. They don't get out of whack. They don't play revenge basketball where it's like, oh, they're running, so we're going to run and do this. We're going to do this. We're going to try to match. They play their game. And then the evolution of the guys that have been there, the evolution of Evan Mobley, the evolution of even Spider, like in this role on this team, and Darius Garland and Karis Burke getting healthy since he's been there. And every year, I feel like I've always loved his game. I think he's such a dynamic player. And to have him coming off your bench, and then you add shooting, and then you add the fact that you got 2 rim protectors on the floor together a lot of times, I think, and one of them being one of the better ones in the league entirely. I think they just in the unit is just grown together so well. I think it's just been fun to watch.
Certainly. And CJ, pleasure talking Cavs, talking NBA, and getting a little inside look at what was a very memorable NBA career of yours. I appreciate the time today.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And now, where can we find what you're up to today? So to those that they want to watch all highlights, follow your current endeavors, where can they do so?
I'm on Instagram, Twitter, Threads, whatever you want to call it, all those things at Mass Fresco. Like, I got lucky and I was able to keep the same name across everything when I made them. At Mass Fresco, everywhere. You can type it in on Apple Music. Also, we've done a lot of projects there. I did a podcast with Toronto Raptors the last couple of years up until this season. Strictly Hoops. So you can look that up if you want to watch us talk about basketball. There's a lot of things that we've done. It's been fun. Basketball's been good to me.
Well said. CJ Miles, Zach Weiss with you across the Cavs on Network 216, and we'll see you next time.